Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Mardek, and we are back in the Dark Temple. So what we're going to do now is we're going to explore more areas of this Dark Temple and see what exactly we have to uncover here. And this is... well, I'm not sure which direction we want to go in here. Seems like it spreads in any of a number of directions. And... okay. Not sure we've seen these guys yet. Monochromes, which appear to be skeletons of some variety. They are undead. They are also wearing bunny slippers. So, okay. They have very high physical defense. They are, again, very resistant to darkness, very weak to light, and somewhat weak to fire. So with that in mind, that means that Charla, you're probably best off using lightning bolts here. Let's try spreading it out across all of you and see how much damage this does. The answer seems to be a little bit, not much. They are fast enough that they will go before Mardek here. So that's a little bit concerning, because that means that Donovan, sure, you could squeeze in an attack here. And will that be enough to take any of these guys out? 1, yes. 3 others, no. So, Slinik, you could take out the one with most HP here, but that does mean that 2 are going to get the chance to hit us, which is a little bit concerning. They attack Mardek, and they are actually dealing light damage here, which is interesting. I believe that we see here they are using Sun Swords. That is actually the same weapon that Mardek is using. It is light elemental, as we know, that's why we were using it on Mardek. So that's a little odd. It's actually maybe a bit the opposite of what we were expecting to see in here. So, okay, we'll have to bear that in mind. They are, of course, still weak to light, though, so that should mean that Mardek is more than capable of taking these guys out. Or so I thought. Maybe they will hang on with 1 HP, however. In which case, Charlotte, could you do the honors here? Yes, you can. Thank you very much, Charlotte. And we actually get a Shadow Blade here. We were looking at them previously. They are, well, not the most relevant of weapons at the moment because they are Dark Elemental. But they do give that degeneration ability that, as we were saying before, Mardek has done a little bit of practice with that. But now, not a good time to master that up, I wouldn't think. It is, however, I'm pretty sure, still a fairly valuable weapon, so at the very least, trying to sell that wouldn't be a bad idea at all. There is a chest here, and it gives Phoenix Downs, so I'd like to see that. This does seem like a dangerous area, so we might need our fair share of Phoenix Downs. That seems like everything in that direction. Then, take your pick as to where we go from there. I'll say right. And I thought I saw a chest down in this direction. That would appear to be the case. This one is another Noxious Bomb. We put one of these on Donovan previously. Basically just deals a bunch of status effects, but no direct damage. Okay, the Punk Monster and Eye Stalk mix. I think we established that what we want to do here is attack an Eye Stalk with Charla. It's not going to be enough to take it out, although it wasn't that far away. Donovan, you aren't looking great here. We, of course, did not opt to put on any of the Dark Resistance items on Donovan. So that means that at the moment, 0 Dark Res and his fair share of magic defense, to be fair. But that does still mean that he's taken a reasonable amount of damage from these guys, so he's somewhat vulnerable with his relatively low HP. So I think on this occasion, we ought to go for a physical attack and take out this Eye Stalk. And then Slinik, I would like to believe you can take out this Punk Monster here. Okay, good. And Mardek, you were a little underwhelming previously, but I'm hoping you can take out the Eye Stalk. Okay, more than capable of doing that. It seems like it was just the really high physical defense that those monochromes had that was throwing off Mardek a little bit in the previous battle. Let's head back up here, and we might find other things in the northerly direction. Or maybe they will just loop around in a circle. Looks like that's what happened there. Okay, so we have a bit of a mix here between more monochromes, and it seems as though they are swapping up the weapons on us quite a bit. I think the first time we saw them, some of them, yes, did have the sun swords, as we were looking at. However, that doesn't look like a sun sword. That looks like an air staff. So I think on occasion we will see that they're using staves like this. I think in the first fight we actually saw some that were using the shadow blades, and we actually did get a shadow blade to drop. And then there's also this onyx here, which is like the other gemstones that we've come across in the past, however, this time dark elemental. And it does, oddly enough, have an onyx item on it. It is very physically defensive, not so magically defensive, and very resistant to dark, very weak to light, and also pretty darn resistant to other elements too, which is a tad concerning, because that means that, sure, we may be able to attack it with spells, but Charlo with air and Donovan with fire, neither of those is going to be doing too much damage because of the resistances. So we can give it a shot here, but I'm not sure how impressed we're going to be. We might actually be rather disappointed, I'm afraid. Yeah, neither of them can break 20 damage. That's not going to be terribly helpful. So now that begs us the question, which one of these enemies do we want to get the chance to take a turn here? Because we can only get rid of one of them with Slinick. So do we want to get rid of the Onyx? One of the monochromes? The Onyx does, of course, have the most HP. Do we know that Slinick can take it out, though? It is weak to light, yes. It does have 20 defense. I think it's a bit of a risk, but in the name of science, let's see just how much damage Slinick can do to it. Okay, more than enough. No worries. And the light attacks, those aren't too bad. And the one with the staff does actually opt to use a spell. Fortunately, chose a fire spell against Slinick, and Slinick is using the fire pendant, so he has 50% fire resistance as well as a 50% additional magic defensive resistance, so completely mitigated that damage there. Mardek, let's just attack the one with more HP here. Oh. However, what? That dealt 0 damage? It seems as if the 31 defense on that occasion was too much for him. Actually, that's odd. One of these guys has 25 defense, the other one has 31. I wonder if... I think these guys may be slightly bugged, if I remember correctly. Because as you see here, the weapons that appear on these guys are not necessarily consistent with the weapons that we're seeing when we click on them. Like, I'm pretty sure one that's listed with the Sun Sword here is actually the one that we see with the staff, and then the one that has the Sun Sword is listed with the staff. One who's listed with the staff has 31 defense, and then the one that is listed with the Sun Sword has 25. So I'm wondering if somehow the game thinks that the one with 31 defense actually has some kind of shield as well. I'm not sure. But I think that what happened is Mardek attacked the one with the higher defense, and that was enough to completely mitigate his damage, even if these guys are still weak to light. With that in mind, I think we go for lightning here. And spells are the way to go against these guys. But we're learning. And we do get an Onyx. We saw that the Onyx had equipped an Onyx. Let's see what it's all about, though. So it gives the degeneration ability. The ability that we were looking at not long ago on the Shadow Blade. It is, well, an Onyx is a type of black gem imbued with the power of darkness. They're common, so they aren't worth much. They contain the potential of destruction. A little bit of magic defense, not a ton, so that's not going to be a huge factor. A little bit of dark resistance as well, also unlikely to be a huge factor. So I think it's mostly the degeneration ability here that we're going to want to equip this for. And as for just how important that might be, like I was saying earlier, I don't think it's a very high priority because most of the time, enemies are not going to have the regeneration status effect. However, when they do, it's typically when they're a boss, so in that occasion, probably is significant. It's just few and far between when that happens. So who can equip this right now? Donovan is 20% of the way to finishing Drain HP. Now, this should still be pretty quick. He could theoretically do this in one battle if we wanted to commit to it. Slinick is the other person I have in mind here, because he has mastered +1 agility. However, I think he has more going on his offensive reactions, so he may not necessarily have the RP. Let's take a look. He does not. So what we would have to do is unequip Quarry Human in order to make room for Degeneration. And that, I mean, we aren't running into humans right now, so I suppose maybe that's okay, but just look at how long it's likely to take us to master Degeneration. 40 attacks? By the time he's done with that, then maybe we will suddenly want to use Quarry Human. However, that's only 2 RP, so maybe by that time Slinick will have enough RP to just throw this on in addition to Degeneration. That could be, at least for the moment, let's put on Degeneration. Okay, and like I was saying, it appeared that this was a big circle. Indeed, that is the case. That is more or less where we came in. So let's go around to the left side here, where we find another chest and another onyx. So in that case, well, we may not need to choose. Ultimately, once Donovan is done with the drain HP, we could put this on him as well. Charla at the moment is using onyx rings purely for the dark resistance. We haven't even equipped the bright eyes either. I think she's pretty consumed with resist earth at the moment. So we could theoretically put on one of the onyxes on Charla. I don't think that's terribly relevant because she is long-term going to be physically attacking the least often out of all of our current party members. And like I said, I think that the value of Degeneration is fairly low compared to other offensive reactions, so I don't think it makes a ton of sense to get rid of the resistances in order to get a skill that she's ultimately unlikely to put much use into. Okay, just a couple of eye stalks here. This is interesting. This might be safe enough for us to consider deliberately keeping some of them alive. But it is, at the very least, an opportunity for Charlotte to get some attacks in physically. But she is, at the very least, working on her poison reaction. So there is that. Oh, and Donovan, yeah, we may have forgotten to heal you in between fights. So, my bad. You do need to do physical attacks. I suppose we could deliberately attack the one with more HP here in case we feel like we might want to do just that. Have these guys use magic attack after magic attack. You do still work on the reaction, even if you miss, but it doesn't look good. Slinick, technically speaking, we don't need you to do anything, so if we were to take that route, then that would likely mean that we would want you to pass. And then Mardek, yes, we also don't want you attacking, but you probably should heal. Now, Donovan's not looking good right now. And then Charla, you can attack the other eye stalk. I'm assuming that you... I was going to say, assuming that you hit, you probably still won't take it out. If you miss, you definitely won't take it out, though. Okay. Donovan, you are blinded. So there is that. You at least have a reason to miss, whereas everyone else seems to be pseudo-blinded, in a way. Okay, now, Slinick, I suppose we could potentially use a liquid light here to remove that blindness. Not sure that's really necessary at this stage. We could just use remove taint on Mardek. Not have to burn through an item. That seems like that's probably the way to go. And then Charla, you can continue to work on your reaction, and if that means you take some guys out along the way, then so be it. And there is the value of having put on 2 Onyx Rings. That 100% Dark Resistance means she is completely immune to those types of attacks there. Donovan, assuming you do hit here, that's okay. You're also working on your reaction. Give us a little bit of time, a little bit of extra time to work on those defensive magic reactions. We don't necessarily need to do them all in one fell swoop, although oftentimes, personally, I prefer that. There is one of them down, though. That is Donovan mastering minus 10%. He's 1 away from mastering the one on his chestplate. That minus 10% was coming from his helmet. In theory, we could put something else on here. Oh, actually, I think that this was... Yeah, this was in pretty high demand, because this is the more powerful version of the circlet that we picked up recently. So I think, if anything, what we're going to want to do here is swap around between Donovan and Charla. Give Charla access to this, so that she can learn the ability. I assume she has the RP to do, she does. And it does mean that, temporarily at least, Donovan is downgrading so that Charla can upgrade, but I think that's okay. Long term, we want to give as many people access to those skills as possible. I think this is the one side we haven't been down yet. And it looks like it is the longest side as well. There's a chest at the very end of this winding path, it seems. And as for what that means, what's in this chest, I don't know. I would assume something more significant than what we found in the other chest. As to whether it's a battle or not, I'm not entirely sure at this stage. But anyways, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. We have obsidian phages. So those are the dark versions of the phages we've run into previously. They are pretty resistant to physical attacks, very resistant to magical attacks. So we definitely don't want to do magic with Charlotte. Tempting as that may oftentimes be, you do, I believe, still need to master that poison reaction though. So now's a good opportunity to work on that a little bit. And you get the poison in, so that helps too. Magic shields for everyone, meaning even worse of an idea to use magical attacks against the phages at least. And again, they were going to deal dark damage, but Charlotte completely mitigates that, so I like that. Let's attack the one that we've started to attack. And then use the big guns, Slinik and Mardek, to try to take out people like the Punk Monster and the undamaged Obsidian Phage, or at least... yes, the undamaged one. Here we go. Not quite enough, actually. So Charlotte, if you do manage to hit this guy, you can likely take him out. If you crit, you definitely can. And there you see how much damage those guys tend to do if they hit someone other than Charlotte. About 150-ish. Donovan, I would think you're getting fairly close to mastering that damage leech. And Slinik, you can take him out. Okay, another Phage Crystal, sure. And there is the poison reaction for Charla, which means she is technically done with the Sting Stick here. We don't have two of these. Ideally, we would, so that we could have them both on Charla and Donovan simultaneously, because they are better than our current alternative, the Iron Spear. But it does mean, at this point in time, that only one person can have the Sting Stick, the other person needs to have an Iron Spear. I do think that it is probably better to have Donovan use the Sting Stick right now, because he is typically going to be the person using physical attacks more often. So let's go with that. I'm not sure that that necessarily changes anything else. Charla will, of course, still have access to the 10% damage and poison that she just learned, just mastered. And here is that chest we were talking about earlier. What are we going to find here? Dark Robe. A black robe, woven with eldritch magics of darkness and all that sort of stuff. It protects against the dark element and blindness status effects. Some mages can also use it to avoid spells entirely. Okay, let's take a good hard look at that. That sounds very interesting. So it has spell resistance, 30%, which is a magic defensive reaction. This is a robe, which means that it should be something that either Donovan or Charlotte could equip, but not Mardek or Slinik. It has 3 defense and 6 magic defense, which is quite strong, actually. As well as plus 2 spirit, plus 20 MP, 50% dark resistance, and 100% resistance to blindness. All in all, that sounds very strong and very fitting for the area we are in right now. As I was saying earlier, we're probably going to expect to take a lot of dark damage. So throwing that on someone like, say, Donovan, who I think was about to master his magic defensive reaction on his current chest plate, that seems like this would be a great option for him to graduate to as soon as he's done with this. So let's give that a shot. It means just hopefully one more battle. Could be as short as that. And I think certainly made going down this route worthwhile. Okay, the Punk Monsters, I don't think can deal any magic attacks. So that means that Donovan, I'm sorry, you will have to wait a little bit longer. Maybe I spoke a tad too soon here. I think we established that these guys actually have a little bit of fire res. They do. So let's instead opt to do a physical attack with Donovan. Okay. Now, Slinik and or Mardek should be able to take these guys out for sure, especially once Charla and Donovan have dealt a little bit of damage to them. No problem. Okay, nothing special rewards-wise off of that fight. So we'll wind our way back up, and we'll check what else we can possibly find in other arms of the Dark Temple. So that was the top right side. We still have this bottom left and bottom right side. And more fights as well, of course. Okay, so we have a combination of Dark Elemental and Monochromes here. Again, the Monochromes, as for what they actually have in terms of gear, apparently it's an Air Staff. Even though, well, maybe that was that guy. I really thought that was supposed to be this one here. Yeah, apparently they're both wielding Air Staffs, even though this says Shadowblade and Kite Shield over here. Not entirely sure. But they are very resistant to physical attacks, so let's use magic here, at least to start off. For both Charla and Donovan. And it's enough to take out one of those guys. Ooh, I missed that reaction. That's no good. It is now Slinik's turn, and the Monochrome is very low. May have 31 defense, but I would like to believe that Slinik can still break through that. Whereas the Dark Elemental has a little bit less defense. So that might be a better option here. Except Monochrome actually goes next. So for that reason, I think it probably makes more sense for us to do this. And then Mardek, are you going to be able to pull this off? Not quite as confident in you, but let's give it a shot. Nope, he's more than capable. My apologies, Mardek, didn't mean to doubt you. Maybe a little bit. There's some Dark Essence, so that's not bad at all. Again, that is potentially a good crafting option for us. And if we double back here, let's certainly heal up a little bit at the Save Crystal. And if we head back down here, I think we will also find, if we take a quick look at the Miasma Chalice. That is, once we're done with the eye stalks, my hope is that we will find that we've filled it up at least a little bit. It's not going to be full at this stage, certainly not. But as we make our way through the temple, it should get to the point where we don't have to go too far out of the way to make a point of getting to 100 battles. We just definitely want to make sure that we double back to pick it up. So, Donovan here, I think we have established these guys are best if you attack them physically, even if it says that they don't have any evasion chance, it really feels like they do. So Slinik, let's take out the highest HP one. So you can do that. And Mardek, take out this guy. Now Charla, I think you might actually be able to pull this off. You can. You were dealing somewhere in the 150-ish range with your attacks. So yeah, the Miasmal Chalice, here we find is 41% full already. So that is a very good sign. So if you find that you are skipping a bunch of fights in this location, then you might be at the point where you very much need to go out of your way to do some additional battles in order to fill this thing up. But, you know, we've only gone down one of these 3 routes here, and we're already almost halfway full. We won't have to do too many additional fights, if any, to fill this up. So let's head down. Actually, let's go this way. I'm feeling like we ought to go right side first. So let's try this on for size. Okay, more phages plus punk monsters. And I think we'll attack the phages first and foremost. Because we know that Mardek or Slinik could take out the punk monster in one hit. And I do think Slinik needs the physical reaction, so that is actually very good for them to attack him. I want to say that a little while ago he needed 3 more. Not entirely sure at this stage how many he still needs, but he's getting somewhat close. And we could throw on any of a number of things in place of his current chestplate, because I think he's only started with his initial armor, with the first armor that we put on him, and he has not done anything else since then, so he has a lot more to equip and a lot more to learn. So, Mardek, can you take out the one on full HP right now? I'm actually not sure that you can, because it does have 20 defense, which is somewhat high. even if it's 100% weak to light, not quite enough. Charla, can you finish this one off? I think you might need a crit to make it happen. Or poison. Neither, though. So it does not happen. Fortunately, it does miss. This one, again, attacks Slinick. That is not a bad thing. And I think we want Donovan to take this guy out here. And he can do that. There you see the difference between Donovan with the higher strength and higher base attack with the Sing Stick versus Charla, the lower base attack on the Iron Spear, made a pretty significant difference in terms of how much damage they could deal with their attacks against a high defense enemy. Slinick, however, you have lots of damage when you hit, as does Mardek. So for them, it shouldn't be as much of a big deal. And there is Drain HP on Donovan. So that does mean that we could swap off Blood Opal and instead put on something like the Onyx. And we might find that Donovan has enough room here to throw on Degeneration. He does not. So, in that case, I think our question becomes, do we sacrifice either Poison or Drain HP to learn Degeneration? I think Drain HP and Poison are both arguably considerably better than Degeneration. Maybe you could make the case that because Donovan does not deal a lot of damage with his attacks, that Drain HP is not nearly as good on him as it is on Mardek and Slinick. That is definitely true. But is it enough the case that Degeneration is actually better? Maybe. Maybe. Makes Donovan's attacks actually a little bit more like setup for other people, removing statuses from our opponents rather than directly dealing damage. Maybe that's a decent idea for someone who's not a primary source of damage. Rather do that with him than, say, Slinick or Mardek.
It's pitch black in here. We can't see where we're going at all. I can create a piercing light to show something, but since it's magical darkness, we won't be able to see far. Even the torches don't illuminate anything.
Okay, so even our map doesn't show anything. That's the other thing about the Dark Temple. It's dark. So we can attempt to make our way through here, but I think we're going to find that it is very difficult to, well, do much of anything in here, because we're going to be walking into walls, we're going to be looking for different locations, and maybe not necessarily finding them, because we don't really know what we're looking for, what we're hitting or not hitting. But there are still battles, that much is for sure. Fortunately, this one's only one enemy here. Will this be enough to take him out before he takes a turn? Not quite, I don't think. So we have an Energy Vortex on Donovan. That might have actually been the last magic defensive reaction that he needed, though, before he is able to swap over to another chestplate. So that might be another big deal for us. So hopefully that is the case. Slinick, Fire Breath should do the trick here. And it is the last one that Donovan needed. So, I believe we were saying Dark Robe probably made sense to put on next, because it is seemingly extremely good. Let's make sure that Donovan has room to equip the defensive reaction. He does not, as things currently stand. It is actually very RP intensive. He's quite close to mastering Magic Fire, which is interesting. I don't think that we're going to have too many fire spells that are going to be fired at Donovan in the Dark Temple. Probably more meaningful to have an overall 30% chance to avoid taking damage from spells, because that way it can avoid damage from things like the dark spells that are going to be most often the things that are hitting us. Do we, however, make sure that we master the fire resistance before we swap over to spell resistance? Because at this stage, well, I suppose we could also sacrifice... No, even if we sacrifice these two, we still won't have enough to do fire and spell resistance simultaneously. So on this occasion, I think what we do is we keep these reactions on, and as soon as he is done with Magic Fire, we will unequip and then equip spell resistance 30% instead. that is definitely something we'll want to do as soon as possible. And I was about to say one thing that is extremely devious about the Dark Temple. Not only is this area dark and hard to see, you can't look at the map, you can't see beyond a couple of spaces in front of you, there's also a hidden area in here. So that makes it extremely difficult, even more so than you might have anticipated, to find all the things that there are to find in this area. And I don't necessarily remember what is down in this location, but we'll check it out. And there are more obsidian phages and monsters, so let's go with the usual strategy here. It is a bit of a tricky combo, though. Having some guys that are very magically resistant means that we can't just damage everyone across the board, Donovan and Charla. It might have been convenient otherwise. It means it'll take a little while to take these guys out. Poison helps, though. Slinik, take out the Punk Monster. That much is for certain. Mardek, take out this guy, and... okay. Previously, he did not deal enough damage to finish that off in one hit. This time, he was able to do so. That's good to see. This Obsidian Phage definitely gonna last, though. But the more you attack Slinik, the closer he gets to mastering his defensive skills, so that's fine, too. And I'm tempted to check that, but I think that we're gonna find that he may even master it after this battle. If not, he's gonna be 1, maybe 2 away. There's another Phage Crystal. He has not mastered it, so he should be close, but the other thing is, somebody was pretty low on HP there. I thought, well, Slinik has taken a few hits. Donovan has as well, maybe not totally necessary for us to heal him, but let's do it just in case. We go down here. Yeah. We'll find this thing. It doesn't look friendly. Hello? Oh, it's, yeah. That's not good.
Children, you do not belong here.
And it's a fight. And it's a mini-boss. And he's a demon. And he has relatively strong attack, and 10 defense, and 10 magic defense, and is very resistant to dark, and somewhat weak to light. So let's try to take this guy out here. Because, well, he might prove tricky. He's gonna go next, and use his dark side, which deals damage to everyone, except for Charla, because she has the across-the-board 100% darkness resistance. All the more reason why that's so useful. For everyone else, looks like no one's in desperate shape after that. As for Donovan, you could either go with a physical attack or with a flame. Let's go with the flame. This guy has a fair share of HP as well. So I'm hoping that Slinik and Mardek can deal a lot of damage with their physical attacks, otherwise this is going to take a long time. So 600, that's not bad. Mardek, also about 600, gets him down to close to half HP, at least after Charlotte's done. That'll probably be the case. I don't necessarily think that we need to heal at this stage. At worst, we have Donovan on roughly 4,500. So I'm hoping that that means he won't go down in one hit here. And an attack specifically singling out Charla, that is the best person to target if you are going for a dark elemental attack. So again, we got fortunate there. I think we do go for flame. And then Slinik, keep up the good work here. Oh, except you didn't. Except you didn't. Mardek? Yes. Okay. So that should mean that with one more round of attacks here between Mardek and Slinik, we should be able to pull this off. Let's deliberately heal in that case. Make sure that no one goes down here. That might complicate things a bit. And there you see how much damage those attacks can do when they're against anyone other than Charla. Donovan can weaken him a little bit here. Is that going to be enough for Slinik to take him out in one hit? I don't think so. We were seeing somewhere in the 600s. Well, 700 this time. So Mardek probably means it'll be up to you, and you can do it. So that is a mini-boss. He is down. Does also give Dark Essence. And, well, what he was doing was actually guarding this switch here. Remember that there were two walls that were blocking the door that we might ultimately want to go through. One of them was purple, so we just flipped this switch to get that one, and then I believe the other one was blue, and so I would assume that it's likely that the other door that we have not yet gone through along the other side might give us a blue switch for us to flip and hopefully allow us to get access to that other room. So with that, I think this is probably a good place for us to wrap up here, and next time, we'll see if we can find our way through the rest of the Dark Temple. There's probably additional things in this area here as well. Maybe we can find that stuff. Who knows?